Good morning. Yesterday I did a video. I added a document via filing. Let's just wiped it out. No, it's okay. It's working now. Sorry. The reason I did it because I'm sick and tired of the nonsense being pushed around that the government said this, the government said that, but they're not the government. And I explained yesterday, this is the constitution put in place in Western Australia with 32 sections missing. So what does it make this? A piece of rubbish. Because the letters patent issued by Queen Victoria was to put this in place in its entirety. This is the correct constitution for the state of Western Australia. It's never been put in there. It's been lied about and they've hidden its placement there. And over the last couple of weeks I've been privy to a lot of stuff from Wikipedia. And it says monarchy of Australia. There's no such thing. Australian head of state dispute. There's no dispute. What they're trying to say is the liars that sit in our federal parliament, and they are all liars because it's been explained to them several times through the years, especially in the last 20 years, that we have never had a lawful federal parliament because you can't have one until every single state puts its original constitutions back in place. If I'm wrong, you show me in the constitution where it says you can just rip the constitution out of each state and put another one in its place. As I explained yesterday, there's no such authority. You're lying. It isn't. You're not dumb. Don't tell me and try and make out that you are, because you're not. This background of this so-called Australian head of state, I'll just read it because it gets interesting. In 1993, in his book in 1993, The Reluctant Republic, Malcolm Turnbull explains that at Federation the Governor-General acted partly as head of state and partly as the local representative of the British government, the latter being the Queen as advised by the Privy Council. As with the other former dominions, Australia gained legislative independence from the UK by virtue of the Statute of Westminster 1931, which was adopted in Australia in 1942. I'll come back to these because this is where all the treason comes from. With retroactive effect from the 3rd of September 1939, by the Rules and Style and Titles Act 1953, the Australian Parliament gave the Queen the title Queen of Australia, and in 1973 removed from the Queen's Australian style and titles any reference to her status as Queen of the United Kingdom Defender of the Faith. Australia's full independence from the UK was achieved with the Australia Act 1986. What a pack of lies. Malcolm Turnbull, you should be strung up. What these actual monarchy of Australia and Australian head of state dispute, what they actually are, as an admission by you people that you're acting treasonously and in fraud against the people of this country. To start off with, Malcolm Turnbull, when you were on the radio in Perth before the referendum in 1999, you came over to Western Australia, you went on the radio, big dealing yourself as usual, proving to everybody how brain dead you really were. When I questioned you on the radio, I said to you, you stated 60% of Australians want a republic. Isn't that what you said? He said yes. I said, is that correct? He said yes, it is. I said, well, why don't you get out of the bush? Because you getting kangaroos, emus and wombats to vote, that's where you get your 60%, because no one in this country believes anything you're saying. So with that, that proves who you are. And then you say, and you explain that at Federation the Governor-General acted partly as head of state and partly as the local representative of the British government. That's a lie. Read your constitution. You got that concept from stupid things written by professors. And to me, I do not think she should be, it's my opinion, she shouldn't be a professor of the Constitution. Because her version of by doing this, the Parliament did this, it removed that. But then you go on further, see, As with the other former dominions, it's not a former dominion. So you lied about that. If you didn't know the Constitution, you were just acting dumb. If you did know it, you were lying. Australia gained legislative independence from the UK by virtue of the Statute of Westminster 1931. Hang on. How come that it wasn't introduced into the Parliament until 1942 as an adoption act? How do you adopt an act which it comes into this country under Clause 5 of the Constitution, subject to our Constitution? But you not only adopted it, you made it retrospective back to 1931. So it's invalid, just by that action alone. The Australian Parliament gave the Queen the title Queen of Australia under the Royal Styles and Titles Act, 1953. Now, how do you do that? When you change the title of the Queen or the monarch in our Constitution, you commit blatant treason and you've overturned our Constitution. Read it. It's in the document I filed yesterday, the lawful oath. That is to the reigning monarch. That style and title remains per our Constitution. Can't be changed. That is an imperial act. And you're making all these claims, the Australian Parliament removed from the Queen's Australian style and title any reference to her status as Queen of the United Kingdom and Defender of the Faith. Australia's full independence from the UK was achieved with the Australia Act 1986. You're a liar. You're a liar. As somebody explained in the comments, and they were very, very clear, and they were correct. Queen Elizabeth signed the top left-hand corner of the Australia Act. The British Parliament sent it back to Australia to put it to the people. Bob Hawke told the British Parliament that we had had a referendum, but then Bob Hawke had a very loose grip on the truth. In fact, the truth had evaded him all his life. He doesn't know what it is. In fact, he was lying, and he committed treason on the people. And if you think the Parliament has any authority, you are lying again. Because go back to what I said. What I said just then is the Western Australian Constitution was never lawfully put in place. What did that do? We only had 5 of the 6 states needed to create the first federal parliament. We only had 5. And by August 1902, New South Wales had removed its constitution, state one, and replaced it with another one. These are letters patents. They are bound to the Commonwealth Constitution by 106. 106 says, at Federation the states can retain their constitution subject to this constitution and altered in accordance with their constitutions. Because they're letters patents, you may do the alteration, but you can't put it into fact until you send it to the Queen for her signature, because only the monarch or reigning monarch can actually change a letters patent. So you lied about that too. And if you didn't know, you were a lawyer, weren't you? You should know. If you don't know, you're not a lawyer's backside. Stop your lies and nonsense. Now you have a problem, because those 2 documents prove every act of treason by you and the political parties and all your so-called professors. Now, they're teaching the supremacy of the Parliament when the Constitution clearly says the Parliament is not supreme, and the very essence of federation is that that must be so. The Parliament are subject to the law, just like everyone else. It says the Parliament is not sovereign. It says neither the federal nor the state Parliament are sovereign bodies, they are simply legislatures with limited authority. If they attempt to pass a law in excess of that authority, the law is a nullity. It affords no obedience. It's nonsensical crap. Time you woke up, stop lying to the people. This is the Australian Constitution Act, 1900 UK, as proclaimed and gazetted on the 1st of January 1901. What is the effect of this act? I've explained it before, but it doesn't seem to sink into politicians. This act is an enabling act. It's in the preamble to the Constitution. It states it on page 283 of ours. Page 286, it says, the supreme, absolute and uncontrolled authority remains with the people. What does that tell you? All your ramblings and I signed this, I said, you signed nothing lawfully. Nothing. Absolutely zero and very little of it. I explained this book. Some people want to know where to get it. You still should be able to get it in some bookshops or online. And then you see who the Queen of Australia is, Bob Hawke. He says so. Not in those exact words, but the way he texted, he put the text into position. That's exactly. Yeah, David Fowler, you're correct. The politicians who have let this digital ID bill go through should be strung up for treason against the people. You don't need to, because we don't have a lawful parliament, so their law is a nullity. You cannot sign any treaty. No Prime Minister can, because you're not even in the Constitution. There's no authority for a Prime Minister to exist. No authority for premiers to exist. Look at what they are. A premier is a premium member of the state parliament. They sit there and they're required to be the speaker or the foreman of the parliament. The same goes at federal level. But we've never had a lawful federal parliament. When are you going to get this through your head? And as for the Australia Act, it was made pursuant to section 51, subsection 38 of the Constitution. Read it. Read it in our annotated one. It gives you the truth. Not the green piece of garbage that they purport to be authorised, printed in China. None of the above. Why would you put our Constitution in the hands of another country to print and not expect it to come back changed or altered? A couple of words changed the whole meaning. I've got the original one. I've had it all the time. The reason I got all the documents, so that when somebody disputed or said what I'm saying is not quite true, I could come here and prove how much bigger liars they actually are. The problem we have is people will not stand up. The document I put on here yesterday, if you print it out, you hand it to your local politician and say, go and get another job. You're fired. Do we have that authority? Absolutely. Under the provisions of Magna Carta, Clause 61. Is that law in this country? Absolutely.
Put their name in.
You can put the politician's name in. You don't have to, but you can put it in. Put your name in where it says Joe Blow and your surname. That's you. If you've got to go to court, hand it up to the court. Don't just look at the notice to attend a court. Print that document out, print the notice, pin the notice to attend court on the back of it and hand it over and say, that's my answer to your notice to attend. You come and see me when you've complied and gone and put this matter to the High Court. You do it under Section 40 of the Judiciary Act. If you can't do that, it means you're not an officer of the Commonwealth. Because if you're employed by us, you're employed by the Commonwealth. We are the Commonwealth. Whereas the people joined together in one indissoluble federation of the Commonwealth of Australia. You are employed by us, paid by our taxes, to govern for us, not over us. Wake up. These lying thieves sitting in our parliament have got to be removed. They are so dumb, most of them have got to have advisors. Advise them of what? If you can't handle the situation you're in, it means you do not know the laws. And it says, good morning, what are your thoughts on Article 61 of Magna Carta 1215? Does it have any power? Absolute. It's in the coronation oath of the Queen to uphold those laws. It's in the first coronation oath of 1 William and Mary. They put it together. That's a forever law because it is the Constitution of the United Kingdom. I've explained this before. I might sound a bit grumpy, but I'm talking a bit louder because for some unknown reason, everything we put on our computer, the volume drops, making it difficult to hear. And I'm sick to death of the liars in this country. They're all called politicians who have to have advisors because they lack the intellectual ability to govern for us. Then they try to say, I'm governing over you. The easiest way to conceal your inept attitude is to stand over somebody. And that's what you do. You have the right to ignore a law that's unlawful. But God help you if you do it, because we're going to penalise you for doing it. They pull cars over on the side of the road and say, blowing this, stick this in your mouth. That's rape. You have no right to enter somebody's body. No parliament can give you that right. And yet you do it. Can we ignore it? No, because you'll get arrested and charged with drink driving, driving under the influence. How can you be driving under the influence when you haven't blown in the bag and you've got no evidence to prove it? Simple. Now we got courts of presumption. Not corporate courts, not all of that. Forget all that. They've changed again. The courts of presumption. You're presumed to be dead. You're presumed to be guilty of every offence put before the court. That's presumption. They presume it. I presume, with just cause, they're a bunch of loonies to put that. That's why I said, you say your name the way you do, and you say I'm a living, breathing man or woman, as you can see. Because if I wasn't, I couldn't talk. So for a moron to sit on the bench and think they have the right to just treat you as if you're garbage, you're dead, you've got no rights, you are lying fraudsters. Every single one of you. Every single one of you people are lying fraudsters. Lying against the people of this country. Lying against the people you're paid to serve. If you were a lawful magistrate or a lawful judge, you'd be an adjudicator between the law and the people in the case that's before you. Law. Constitutional reality. It's in the Constitution. The problem is, you took it out of the schools. Why? You people, as I repeat, the conscription, it doesn't exist because we did not have a referendum to give you that permission. The military is controlled under Section 68 of the Constitution by the Governor-General, not your nonsense, Turnbull. The Governor-General is the Queen's representative or the monarch's representative. Head of state, whatever you want to call it, he is that. He doesn't have to be. He is the representative. He has the ultimate authority in this country. If you try to say he isn't, come and see me. I'll explain the Constitution where it is so you can read it, because obviously you're not listening. Only a brain-dead fool would be told something and ignore it. I get told things, I go and get the Constitution out, I'll look it up and say, no, he's wrong, or yes, he's correct. I'll go back and correct it. I try to be as accurate as I can. I'm trying to put to you people, we are the Constitution. And Mark Steele, our GG, is unlawful, absolutely. He's elected under the letters patent issued by Bob Hawke. How does Bob Hawke, a bird-brained liar, fraud, thief, and a lot of other things, how does he issue a letters patent? Letters patent in relation to this country is issued by the monarch of this country. And it was issued by Queen Victoria before at Federation. It was a reciprocating letters patent for the office of Governor-General. It states that in the Constitution. States it was. You've got to excuse that mark going across the screen. That is actually a fly. It's decided to get in on the picture, so it's walking back. It's having a ball at present. And that's the problem we have, but don't worry about that. We'll get over that. We are the real government, not a corporation. We are a real government, that's a fact, but this government is not a corporation. They're trading companies. Somebody asked a question yesterday, what are they? They're registered with Foreign Agents Registration Act of America, 1939, when it was updated. It's administered by US Department of Justice. All the little companies they set up, and they're all set up, and you can check that with Dun & Bradstreet, there's 18 of them. All our public utilities and everything else our so-called governments, our so-called government departments, the so-called local government, which actually does not exist in law. That's a blatant act of treason to create another form of government and add it to the state constitutions with an act of parliament in 1979 when none of the state parliaments existed anyway, so their authority to do it was gone. And these magistrates are relying on that to convict people of not paying rates, doing everything. And to anybody who wants to come on, you lost your property. I haven't lost my property. I have the title. The only title which is lawful. There is no obsolete titles. If you have the original title of your property, they can type what they like over the top. As long as it's got an estate in fee simple on the top, it's a valid title. The insignia on the top, the kangaroos, twin kangaroos, that's nonsense. Where's the royal identifier? Because it's not transferred from the government to you or parliament to you or any entity in this country. It's transferred directly from the crown to the people, and then it's alienated from the crown. Rates is a tax. Control over your property is against the imperial law. Chalice Real Property, 3rd edition. Read it. Comprehend what alienated from the crown means. Total dissolvement of the involvement of the crown in your property. Does the crown still own the realm? Yes. Does it own the country? Well, that's debatable, but under the Constitution, possible that that's the case, or they think it is. My version is God owns the country. We reside on it. We have to have laws created under the authority of the crown, which is God in British law. So I'm not getting into that yet. I'm coming back to go after the religions with a video shortly, because they have a big involvement in the absolute garbage that's being administered on this country. They have, because they've lacked the intestinal fortitude for in other words, the balls to stand up and say, that's wrong, correct it. You won't do it because you've got no guts. You have to be meek and mild before God. Get off your backside and get out there and put God's law to people. You won't do it because you're not God's people, you're a religion. Now, what I've got to say now, it's time for people to wake up. You get that document I put on here yesterday, you print it out, you can actually white ink out where you've got to put your name, and then you can put it into feed it back into your computer and type your name in there. Take it out, take it to a JP, get it signed, get him to sign it or her to sign it, and go down and get all the copies you can and hand it to your local MPs, whether it's state or federal. This is the law. This is the constitutional reality of you sitting in treason. Wake up to that fact or you're going to stand trial for treason. You can say it. They are there to represent you. Oh, I represent the people of this area. Well, sorry. There's your other problems. You say, oh, we're a realm. No, no. Stop lying and twisting words, Turnbull. Clause 8 of the Constitution says when the colonies become states, and that's by way of 107, 108 and 109, and draw their authority referentially from the Constitution. When the colonies become states, the Boundaries Act no longer applies. So there goes all your electoral boundaries, your council boundaries, your state boundaries. They're gone. So the division between states is an imaginary line on a map. Try to say it's anything else, you're lying. McGowan tries, he's just a hopeless liar. And we all know he is. Now, then it goes on. It says, however, when the Commonwealth is established, it's established as a self-governing colony of England. That knocks your book out, Turnbull. That knocks out the ability of the Parliament to do or say anything. Everything you've done, the Royal Styles and Titles Act, Statute of Westminster, all the decisions the Parliament made without going to the people in a referendum were nothing but treason and fraud and war on the Crown of England. Can the Parliament send the soldiers off to war? No. Not unless it is given to the public servants, the people who hold the portfolios, on the advice of the governor, will direct the military if the Queen or the reigning monarch says they've got to deploy her Royal Australian Army, her Royal Australian Air Force, her Royal Australian Navy to a particular place overseas to defend one of her realms or his realms. Comprehend that the military is not at the disposal of the current government. They're not under the control. They have no authority. If you lie your way into putting these people overseas and someone gets killed, their death is on your head. Read your Constitution. You do not have authority over... What's this? What was that little bit? Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples adopted 14th December. I don't care if it was. Sorry, Karma Morality. You're wrong. Maybe that was put there. They still had to go to the people of Australia because we joined together in one indissoluble federation of the Commonwealth of Australia as an inferior parliament to the British Parliament. They cannot tell us what to do without getting our permission. Read your Constitution. You understand what I just said about what you've put on there? And I don't care if it's got www whatever, celebration, declaration granting. It's a load of nonsense. They can't declare. There's no independence to colonial countries. We're not a colonial country. We are a colony of England by way of our Constitution. Our Parliament is inferior to the British Parliament. The state parliaments are inferior to the federal parliament if it was lawfully established, but they can't. The UK would be bound to arrest the Queen. That's international law. International law, again, is not law in this country without the will of the people. You like that one? International law is usually made by countries who want to get control of the world, like the WHO, the WEF, and the likes of those people who want to take over the world by stealth, disregarding the authority of the people. That's exactly what it is. The reason I'm referring to comments because Peter Farquharson, don't pick on McLeod. Why not? Anyway, I'm not going to answer that one. The Australian government solicitors transfer my clear title on my property without my knowledge or consent into the CEO of the federal court's personal name in fee simple, and the state police, federal police, state attorney generals, and federal, well, I'm not going into the rest of that. They can't do it. What they've done is treason and fraud and theft. They can't transfer your title. The only authority is granted to the federal parliament over land is to resume it for public use, to put through roads and stuff like that, and for emergency service uses. Now, who do the coppers serve? They serve the purported governors of the states, Johnny Reid, and they are public officers. They are not police. You cannot serve two masters. The big problem we have is people are listening to these people. The police in the state, they're federal police, employed at state level. The police acts that existed prior to Federation were dissolved on the proclamation of the Constitution under Clause 7 of the Constitution. It says so. Section 51, subsection 38 explains in quick and Garran exactly what took place, and that wipes it all out. So when you look at that, all these agreements are gone. We couldn't sign the Statute of Westminster without putting it to the people, and you couldn't put it in there if it interfered with our Constitution, and it does. So it can't exist. Preferential voting was put in by Billy Hughes. That's another act of treason by him, but it wasn't law because the federal parliament didn't exist. Signing the Treaty of Versailles, another lie. Another lie. the joining of the League of Nations, act of treason against the people. The Parliament deciding anything on behalf of the people without putting it to the people is a total act of treason, because even if they follow the constitutional description of who they are, they cannot put legislation together. That's done by the governors of the states sitting in an executive, 10 from the lower house, 8 from the upper. Without that, it doesn't exist. Johnny Reid, I am talking to a few police that I know, and they are stating they're trying to take the lawful oath so they can get back under the Constitution, which would change their status from public officers back to police. But that would have to be on getting an exemption from the government, or more likely a pardon from the governor for their part in what they've done. I can't see that being lawful anyway, but that's not my call and I'm not getting into it. McKenna, federal mercenaries and state mercenaries. Yeah, well, that's basically what the police are at this stage, contrary to 114 of the Constitution. They're an army raised by the parliaments to control the people. Federal police are not federal police to start off with. They're Commonwealth police. They always were until they decided to change it. I think it was about 1979. I'm not sure on that exact date. But the federal police don't exist as an entity. They have to be Commonwealth police, employed by who? Us. Under the control of the Governor-General. Not the Parliament. They're there to arrest the Parliament if it gets out of line. Johnny Reid, we need them on our side. I agree wholeheartedly. That would be an argument you could put to the Governor or to the Governor-General in relation to them once we get lawful ones. In the meantime, they're sitting in treason. A load of garbage keeps appearing on my screen. I'll just wipe it out again. What's too low FPS anyway? Alright, I've had enough to say. Anyone put any stuff on here? Can we elect our own GG? No, it's got to be elected according to the letters patent issued by Queen Victoria. What's that? Knock that garbage off again. Someone else put on there. That's alright, it's gone. So I'll stay on for a while longer. Anyone wants to say what you're putting on here, I can now read. We've set it up so I can. So I can add a lot of stuff. I'll go back to the Parliament and the facilities in this country all having ABN numbers. They use the excuse we had to because of the GST legislation. Well, if any of them, had half a brain, they know that the Constitution is clear. 51 subsection 2. Any law in relation to tax shall deal with one subject of tax only. One subject of tax only. Where's the problem there? Goods and services are two subjects of tax. There goes your pay as you go, pay forward tax, all the garbage and filling out BAS statements. Treason. So no, to put all the churches on ABNs, treason. Put all the charities on ABNs, treason. All under the Church of Rome. I'll deal with all that with the religious garbage later. Am I condemning Christianity? No, I'm not. Proper Christianity? No, I'm not. But I am going to not attack verbally all the religions, just attack what they're trying to put over. Because you see who's running them, and it's not who you think it is. It isn't. Now, getting back to joining the United Nations, we can't join the United Nations. England does. Then they try to put it into our country via Clause 5 to the Constitution. No, doesn't comply. We don't pay another country. I got the United Nations Charter off the Deputy Premier of Western Australia in 1983-84. And he resigned. We had long discussions about different things, and he resigned. He was disgusted in the Labor Party and Brian Burke and garbage they were trying to enforce on the people of Western Australia. You see, there are good people in some of those places, and the ones that are good resign and get out of the sewer, because that's where they are, sitting in the sewer. What's this? Australia was in caretaker mode until the One Health Australia CDC law makes the caretaker Israel. That's no, sorry, karma morality. You can say that over and over again, but we had no permanent parliament. We've never had a parliament. You say Australian caretakers signed up to WHO One Health law, which is USA Digital Twin law under Israel command. Australia was in caretaker mode. No, we weren't. No, we weren't. The Parliament was in caretaker mode, and they weren't operating for us because they do not exist in law. Listen to what I said. Karma morality, you need to have a long, hard look at our Constitution, and you'll find out what I'm saying is correct. Until all 6 states have their constitutions back placed, we can't have a federal parliament. So anything that was done by them doesn't exist, by Israel even. I'm not condemning Israel. It's got a right to its own country if it can prove it, and to its own sovereignty if it can prove it. Biblically, it's correct. You want to argue that, go argue with God and Israel, because I'm not going to speak against them. I don't follow a lot of what they say. I've read how they were established, because you read right up until Judges in the Bible, you'll get to understand where they're coming from and what they did. Very interesting to read. Now, I want to tell you something. I am not religious. I'll never be religious. Do I believe in God? Yes. Do I believe in religion? Absolutely not. It's not the same thing. I'll explain that in another video. Now, is John Wilson deceiving the people? I don't know. John Wilson and I have a very mild relationship. If he's going to do something like call for a national strike, and it's on the grounds of putting the Constitution and our law back in place, then I'm behind him. If he changes that, then I'll be the first one to stand up there and say he's deceiving the people, he's misleading and deceiving them, because that's what I can do and I will. Due to our country being registered as a company, can they be held accountable by the international courts? No. David Walters will tell you he tried to go there and he was told they can't. What's my opinion on the firearms bill? Yeah, well, the imperial law, our Bill of Rights, through the imperial law, we can carry a weapon for our defence of our wife, defence of our children, and defence of our property. They can lie all they like, but that's the law. If you don't like Irene Townsend, what Queen? The Queen never advocated. Where did you get that nonsense from? Irene Townsend, what do you mean didn't advocate, didn't abdicate? She died. Now, I didn't come with any nonsense. If somebody else did, well, that's fine. You just attack them. Once a charity or religion has an ABN, they cannot, oh, it keeps jumping. All right. You're not religious, so you didn't learn to say bum and dad. What? Yeah, all right. Whatever. Once a charity or religion has an ABN, they cannot criticise abortion or vaccines. No, you're actually pretty correct, George Carey. What they did is they put them under ABN, and if they open their mouths, they're going to make them pay GST on all the money that was donated from people who had paid the tax on it already. That's why they did it, to get hold of their money or hold them under control. Because if they preach from the pulpit anything against the government, they foreclose on them and take all their money. That's what it's for. It's all about control. What Queen? I'm not going into Irene. Wayne is using facts here, that's all. We have been chatting about what all these so-called governors do while in their lawful position. Now, we will be doing a video on all these positions compared to their purported positions. Good, Mick. That's good, because it takes a little bit of weight off me. Look, what power do common law sheriffs have? The same law, rights and powers that every other single person has who sees an indictable offence committed. If they don't act on it, they become party to it. That's the law. That's the law. And calm and morality. That's why all caretaker Commonwealth countries in lockstep did the, whatever that is, weapon vaccine, while the ex-Commonwealth countries who had made a declaration and president were not culled by digital twin law. Yeah, but they only got their way here because nobody stood up. Calm and morality. That's my opinion because I've seen what is going on. People are walking away from their they have a, whatever you call it, they have no option but to deal with criminal actions. These police that upheld these laws were committing treason as well as assault on the people they arrested. I'm not attacking the police. We have to have police that can handle some kind of control over the public. I was one for 17 years. I know what we were required to do, and bit by bit all those things were taken away by legislatures who had no authority to pass laws, calling themselves a government. They lied, they cheated, they changed laws. They used the 1893 Act, which was declared invalid in setting up an entity known as WA Police in 2010 by Justice Jenkins in the Supreme Court. He said so. There's no such lawful entity as WA Police. They're not police, they're public officers. The High Court's ruled if you're a public officer, you're a creature of statute. You can never be an officer of the Crown. If you look at the Criminal Investigation Act of Western Australia, 41 subsection 1, it says only police or public officers, two entities, can issue a warrant under this section. So if you're a public officer, you don't have a capacity as a police officer, which is what they were trying to push here. I don't know what the other states state, but it's nothing but lies. Does that come under servitude in the Constitution? Peter Campbell, I'm not getting into that. My idea is to educate people in relation to the things. We are not in servitude under our Constitution. We are not. If you read page 701, it's got a diagram that just literally shows you the position. It says Commonwealth, quasi-sovereign. That's us. We are the Commonwealth. We give legislative areas to our Parliament. And they are set there for the express purpose of setting parameters as how we wish to be governed. Every politician that's elected to our Parliament is there to serve us. There to serve us, and they never do. So what's that? That's treason. They breach the oath they owe to us. And Mick Hannah, you're correct. The only problem we have in this country is unity. It is, and that is the problem. We sit back and we say, oh, we should do this, we should do that. No, we should get off our fat backsides and do something. You come to my house, we run out of paper, our printing machine dies regular. We got 3, 4, 5 of them at present, none of them, well, one works out of the whole lot. We try to put people's paperwork together so they can go to court and put their view to the Parliament, to the court. But we don't have a lawful court. A court is a gathering under the sovereign. As each state took the sovereign out of their state legislation, Western Australia did in 2005, took the oath out with the Oath Affidavits and Statutory Declarations Act 2005, but on January the 1st, 2004, McGowan and all these flea bags, they decided it was time that we would create a new something, a new setup that's unknown to the Constitution called the state. And they took out all reference to the Crown and everything else. The big problem is by doing that, they negated themselves and turned themselves into absolute criminals. Peter Foss, who was in the Parliament in 2003, said, this is an entity unknown to the Constitution. One day it's going to come back and bite you on the arse. His words in Parliament. Look it up, it's in Hansard. The big problem we have is not enough people learning. I am getting older. I'm 76 and I love every year of it, every minute of it, because I've done everything in my authority or power to educate people in our Constitution. I've got two ex-wives. They don't like what I do. They don't. A lot of people don't like what I do. If I went around looking for someone to like me, I would have gone and found a corner to sit in and hide. I don't do that. I believe that if we got a brain and a good one and a good memory and we can read and understand, we should stand up and point the finger and say, get out of our parliament, you're lying fraudsters. Go into our courts and say, you're not telling the truth. Challenge their jurisdiction. The document I put on here yesterday challenges the jurisdiction of the court. If you've got copies, hand them to the police if they pull you over. Read this. If you have this, if they take the time to read it, they can only do one thing, walk away. I'm not telling them, if you're committing a criminal offence, I'm not telling you to drive like a loony. People ring up and say, oh, I got a speeding ticket or I got a parking ticket, what should I do? Be nice to your mother and pay it next time. Don't speed. Don't speed, and don't park unlawfully. I told you earlier about this. This is the United Nations Charter, the original one. I was given it by Mel Bryce. Mel Bryce was the Deputy Premier of Western Australia. He left because of the corruption in the Labor Party and the attacks on him personally. I know because I was working in the district where he lived, and I'm not saying where that is. I can only put this to you, and I'm going to continue doing it. I'm going to sign off now. If you put anything, other questions on here, I will keep explaining to you what my beliefs they are according to the Constitution. It is my beliefs. It is my interpretation, but the Constitution, our Constitution, was interpreted by Quick and Garron. Quick and Garron were both dead when the green one was put out, so it wasn't authorised. If it was authorised by anyone, it was probably Father Christmas or the Tooth Fairy or some other idiot thing. But know this, I don't believe in all of this garbage. I believe we can set up one nation with absolute authority of the people so that we are governed by people that are looking after us. Nobody else. It's whereas the people join together in one indissoluble federation of the Commonwealth of Australia cannot be dissolved until you dissolve the British Empire and remove the Commonwealth Constitution Act, which is an enabling act. It says so on page 283. Read it. It's clear. So you have a fantastic day, because I'm going to get outside and enjoy some sunshine while we got some.